Hello, everyone. Hope everybody's having a fantastic day. And I'm really glad that we're doing this topic. We haven't done this in quite some time. This is more of, one of the preferred subjects that people enjoy listening to. It's on and off, but don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. You don't have to. Of course you don't. But it's highly appreciated. But regardless if you do or don't, I still appreciate all the love and support from every single person that's listening. Thank you for being here. And I'm grateful that I can have you guys listening in on the things that I read. I currently live in my parents' house while they live in another state. I grew up in this house. We always joked about there being a ghost being around us. It started in the house we were in before this. There were orbs and cold spots and shadows. Even a couple times where my phone had disappeared and then reappeared in the closet. I was young enough at the time to think, maybe if I did lose it in there, if it weren't for the strange recordings put on the phone after each time, if I can find the phone and record the recordings, I'll put them on here for you. In that same house, I took 2 photos of my cousin. One perfectly normal, the other with a man in the mirror behind me. I'll add those to this post. Years later, and I'm now in this new home living on my own with my 2 partners. There is some very suspicious things happening about this house. It began with things just going missing too often, never to reappear. There was a point where I woke up one night to multiple noises in the room, like tapping the spines of a book, flicking the items on the headboard, tapping on the dresser, and it really scared the shit out of me that time until it abruptly stopped. I cannot remember if this was before or after the ring was brought into this house. The ring was given to us by a mortician friend of mine who had cremated this man one day. When they cremate someone, they take off all of the jewelry and clothing. However, when my friend cremated this one guy, he had found a melted family ring in the ashes. The family didn't want it, so we took it home and eventually made it into our hands. We kept it in this house under the bathroom sink for a few months, but things kept disappearing and shit kept happening. Rooms got trashed, doors could open, so we buried it in a ceremonial box outside in our strawberry garden beds. There has not been much activity since, other than a shadow figure, until now. Here's where the sleep paralysis comes in. I get sleep paralysis, and the first few times having it in the house has been fine, but it's gradually gotten worse. I'd hear lots of things like music, or tambourines, or clapping, what have you. There was one time I got stuck in sleep paralysis and wanted to see if I could astral project for shits and giggles. I've done it before, and I could recognize the feeling of it in sleep paralysis, so I figured, what could go wrong? I got to the point where I was pushing myself up into a sitting position before an overwhelming force actually hit me in the face, knocking me completely out of sleep paralysis. I took that as a warning not to do it that night and accepted it, and went back to sleep. I have a few witchy friends who warned me the next day to not go into astral projection without protection, so I took that to heart. A few sleep paralyses later, I have one night. Tonight was particularly special because there was actually 2 distinct voices this time. So there I was, frozen in bed listening to the tambourines and plastic lids being thrown around the room. But suddenly, I heard this voice call out to me as if I were standing next to my bed leaning over me. I couldn't make out the gender, but they sounded young like I am. They asked me questions as I now don't remember, but I could answer them through my own thoughts. This has never happened to me before in a sleep paralysis event, ever. So I entertained the person. Actually, and eventually, they brought up astral projection, but they didn't say those words. Again, I don't remember exactly the words, but they meant it. That's when I felt the heavy feeling of projection starting. It was so strong that I felt that if I did do it, I would actually get somewhere. But they wanted me to do it. I got suspicious and backed off. I told them no. Then the second voice chimes in, sounding furious and telling me to do it. This new voice definitely sealed my decision not to do it without projection. An adult male, gruff voice, very scratchy and somewhat elderly. Not at all like the younger voice. It took about an hour of listening to them or begging for my protection before I could finally snap out of it and get up. I quickly created a sigil and drew it into my hand and tried to fall back in, but it all completely went away. Silence. Now I want everyone to know my personal thoughts and experiences on the matter of sleep paralysis and paranormal activity. I'm thinking of tattooing a sigil on my hand for the next time this happens, because I want to know what they wanted from me. So, I'm a 25-year-old female. I have always been told that my family has had all the horrible experiences with this house or being haunted. Of course, growing up, I never believed it, until I lived with my grandma. My grandma had a big mirror on the living room wall facing the kitchen. People would always comment on it when they came in and just say it's creepy, and they got a chill being around it, and of course, me being skeptical, I just laughed it off. My grandma has always carried around energies around her, which I did believe she is a very spiritual woman. So one night, I was in my bedroom talking to my sister. I decided to get snacks while we talked. So I went into the kitchen and was grabbing cereal from the cabinet and turned around to grab a bowl. I got a glance in the mirror and I thought I'd seen something behind me, but shrugged it off until I got a chill and heard an almost silent whisper of a word I couldn't even make out. And to my surprise, I looked up and saw a man with a squared glasses and a baseball cap staring at me. I ran off to my sister screaming, and when I made it back into my room, she said she thought I was in the bathroom because she heard the water in the bathroom. We both ended up sleeping with my grandma that night. I am a very big skeptic when it comes to the paranormal, and it just is not something I believed in nor thought was real until this experience. A few months ago, I came back to my dorm after studying at my school. When I went to sleep, I suddenly felt something strange. I was floating above my body. Things that I saw during that out-of-body experience were so real. I could fly out of my room, into the kitchen of the apartment I lived in. I could see one of my roommates preparing his late-night snack. I could even touch the fire auto extinguisher on the ceiling. Then I flew back to my room. When I saw my face sleeping soundly, my soul merged with my body again, all of a sudden. When I woke up, I could not believe what I had experienced. I never had this experience before, so I might think that I was just hallucinating, but I'm not too sure. My mom died when I was 9. My dad when I was 19. I had traumas following these as well. Developed bipolar type 2, dysthymia, panic disorder, anxiety, eating disorder, etc. I have had a hard time to tell sometimes which traumas affect me at the moment and how to deal with it, and even what part of a trauma upsets me. Yesterday, I had a conversation in my garden with my best friends and my boyfriend. I talked about my parents and told them how much my dad loved astronomy. I told them that when I was young, I described stars as a group of really tiny balls that contained fire, but from far away, we see them white instead of orange. In that very moment, we saw a shooting star. So here it is, the thing. I saw quite a few shooting stars in my life, but know when the little shiny star moves, sometimes even leaving a light line. But this was different. It was like a fireball, sparking orange dust behind it. As quickly and fast as it appeared, it also vanished into the sky. We all saw it clearly, and none of us saw anything like this. I started crying immediately, but not intentionally. My heart just started flowing from my eyes. After a minute of silence of the shook it gave us all, I quickly asked him, "Am I crazy if I think this was a sign from my parents?" For a long time, I've listened to a guided meditation YouTube channel to help calm my stress and find my balance in life. I've been doing this for a few years now, and I decided to try my first guided astral projection. I wish I hadn't. I started it like I would any other time I would be doing a meditation, and I did manage to have a out-of-body experience. It was exciting and kind of scary, and I found myself in the cemetery near my house. Everything went from exciting to scary almost immediately. No, I am not scared of cemeteries, and I know how cliche this sounds, but everything around me looked like TV static, and I couldn't make out the details on anything around me. I could hear wind and static, and felt uncomfortable, but I couldn't bring myself out of it, so I started to panic. All I could think of was to get away from this place, get out and get away. I felt like I was in danger, but there was nothing near me that was dangerous that I could see. I somehow managed to come up out of it when I was back in my bed. My heart was racing, but I felt safe. I don't know what went wrong or what that experience meant, but I don't think I'll be attempting astral projection for a while again. When I was 6, I remember flying as a kid. This happened maybe 5 times in my entire life as a young girl. I was going to sleep and then I had a dream, but it was different. Up to this day, I can clearly remember the feeling, and I just know it wasn't just a dream. I live in a very beautiful small town in Germany with a famous lake with lots of tourists. I love that lake and the city since I can think. Anyway, I'm sleeping and all of a sudden, I'm in that dream phase, but I can see myself from above sleeping. Then I flew out the window, levitating to the steps where the lake begins, and flew above it with the speed. I felt the wind, the freedom, touched the surface while flying, and I was so damn happy. As dumb as I was at that age, I thought I can really fly and was about to make something stupid out of myself. But then something changed my mind, like some inner voice shouting, "No, dumb kid, don't do that." That was the last time that I could fly. It never happened again. I know it's called astral projection, and I miss the feeling, but I wouldn't do it on purpose because I don't want to see the shadow beings which I researched quite a bit, but I don't know exactly what causes them. It hasn't happened in quite some time, and I'm 29 now. I had recently moved away from the hometown to the Bay Area. I had broken up with an ex months ago prior and wanted to start a new journey. I had ended a relationship due to infidelity on his end. I'm not sure this is relevant, but whatever. For the purpose of my story, I'll call him D. Anyhow, one night in my new apartment, I was laying in bed, trying to do some meditation and ended up falling asleep. In my dream, I was flying through the night sky and ended up back in my hometown. I landed and walked up to a pretty junky older house that I did not recognize. I walked in and noticed people inside. They did not see me though. There in the kitchen at the table was my ex, D, and he was injecting himself with some sort of drug. I walk around the table just staring at him and he does not see me. I remember trying to communicate with him, but no words were coming out. I suddenly felt overcome with sadness, and that's when all of a sudden I jolted back and woke up. I couldn't believe this dream, so I just shrugged it off. About a week later, I get on the phone with my friend that still lived back in my hometown, and we were just chatting and catching up, and she goes on about how I never knew what was going on and would never believe who we saw at the bar asking around where he could find heroin. It was D. Now, I don't know if it's all just a dream or a coincidence, but I kind of felt I had actually astral projected that night and saw him doing drugs. For whatever reason, I went to see him, but I never had any more contact with him since I left. That was the one and only time I ever had this happen. It's very weird, but has anyone else visited someone? So today my parents and I got back from the doctors, and my dad stayed talking to one of our neighbors about something irrelevant as they were chatting, and he told my dad that the neighbor that lives across from us had died about 25 days ago. He was relatively young, but he got COVID and didn't get attended, so he died on his 5th day sick. The thing is, I saw him on June 19th. I know the date because my parents got COVID as well on June 8th. So I was the one taking care of them, and I was attending the shop while they were on weekends, but didn't attend the first weekend they got sick. That gave us like 9 days where he had already died. Based on what the other person told my dad, I remember him getting some blankets in his truck and waving me, then driving away just when I was about to pull out. It called my attention that he wasn't wearing his work clothes like every single time that I've seen him. My parents wouldn't say if they saw him or when the last time they did because they were in their room still. I don't know if this is considered a glitch or something paranormal, but it definitely was something weird that happened, and I can't get it out of my head. I dreamt I was in the home I grew up in as a teenager. There was a Halloween party next door and I wanted to join. I walked outside and the exterior was the same as my old neighbors at the time. The visuals were in 4K, so I knew immediately I was dreaming and felt confident I had some control, but with my vivid dreams comes my night terrors. I walked across my driveway and passed by a woman leaving the party. I was on edge thinking she would be the start of a nightmare, but as we crossed paths, she said, "Happy Halloween." I smiled and waved back, but still felt on edge as if I should stay cautious. I entered the home, and inside the middle class was a 2-story home was the interior of a giant party mansion. I immediately started searching for someone who seemed trustworthy to give me answers. I've seen on TikTok people asking others in dreams what the date or time is, and I've gotten nothing but people staring and gaslighting me. I saw a man and took him into a back room. Before I could ask, a woman appeared behind a partition, and I directed them both to sit on the couch. I stood in front of them and asked what the date and time was. They laughed in my face and told me that was impossible to answer because they don't track time by day or night. They told me that the time there could be easily reset or thrown off balance depending on the events that occur in my dimension. I asked them to guess what the time would be if I were awake, and they guessed around 11:38. That's when the woman got up and told me that if I wanted to wake up right now, I'd have to have the Lord pull me out. I immediately felt a presence behind me, and it did not feel friendly. I had goosebumps, and that familiar cold chill crept up my spine. She told me to close my eyes because if I turned around, his appearance would scare me. I shut my eyes, and she told me to lay down and hold out my arm. She held me throughout the entire thing to comfort me. I felt cold, long fingers on my forearm, and I was immediately trapped in a sleep paralysis episode. I wiggled my feet to get out of it, and when I woke up, it was 11:42. Last night, some noise woke me up about 4 a.m. I got up, ate something, and came back to bed. Some browsing on my phone, then I said, fuck it. It's 4:30 a.m. It's pitch black. It's likely the best time to try to astral project. I started the whole mind awake, body asleep thing, trying to feel heavy feet, legs and such. It didn't work. I wasn't patient enough for it. Moved a bit for a while, tried another position, and started to remember how vibrations feel when you close to AP. After a while, instead of getting the full body vibrations, I started feeling like energy, small vibrations moving from the back of my head, through the spine down to my back, and bang, when the energy reached my back, I was in a dream. It lasted for a while. Then, while dreaming, I knew I was almost waking up, and I unconsciously started remembering the feeling of those vibrations I had just before dreaming. Felt again them from my head down to my spine, and bang, dream 2 started. The same thing as above. I felt as if I was waking up. Remember the energy vibration feeling. It started again and boom, into dream 3. It was like 5 dreams in 3 hours or even more. I'm not really sure they were lucid dreams though. But I remember clearly I knew, while dreaming, that I was close to waking up every single time. It's crazy stuff. Does this kind of vibrations from my head to spine or back tell you something? I never felt them that way and would like to learn more about them. Thank you everyone for listening. If your story was told, I'm glad I'm the one who could tell it. I appreciate all the love and support. I hope you enjoyed today's stories as much as I did reading them.